Hi there, this is Sahila, and it's Fridays with Sahila. I'm just having a little joke with myself. Alright, so thank you for the really positive feedback I've had about the last video that I published on YouTube. Very gratifying, feeling very humbled by the response, and it's good to know that so many people, so many women are ready for this, or the women amongst the women that I know. I can't say that this is a global thing yet, but there is plenty of interest, and you know, the time is now. If not now, when? We are systematically destroying our planet. The world has never been in any state of democracy, because you can't call it democracy when half the species doesn't have full rights and full representation to match that of the other half of the species. That's not democracy in anyone's language, in anyone's definition. When institutionalized patriarchy across the board keeps half of the species at a state of being seen as lesser than in law, and in, you know, the practical implications of that as it plays out in real life, then that's not democracy. So we've never had democracy. We women have never had democracy. We've never lived in a democratic society. So this idea that you know, that this is as good as it gets, or this is all normal, or this is all fair and equal and is full of equity, the current system that we live in, that's rubbish. And I've been calling it that for a long time, so have many other people. We think we've been waiting, asking, begging, sobbing, crying, writing, protesting for eons, literally millennia. Generation after generation of women have been dealing with this issue and have been attempting to get the men folk to get nice and to be reasonable and to do the right thing, and it hasn't worked. So unless we get, and right now we're in a more precarious position than ever, because we have this gender ideology being worked into the legal system, into laws, into social policy, into the very, you know, foundations of communication, by changing language and defining women out of existence. How does that work? Well, we use definitions of objects and situations and people and all sorts of things. We give things names, and in the naming we create a boundary. So we say that for example, a table is something at which you can sit, which can hold things, at which you may sit to have a meal. It usually has 3 or 4 legs so that it can stand upright. It is usually constructed to be a certain height that is suitable for humans to use. So we get very, very precise in the definition of what is a table. Now we know that a chair is something that humans and maybe other animals, beings, sit on. A chair is designed to be sat on. A table is not designed to be sat on, even though some of us do sit on it, but it's not designed primarily for sitting on. So we know through naming and the use of definitions that a table is quite distinct from a chair. Now we know that for millennia humans have agreed that woman is the noun that we use to name the adult phase in the human female life cycle. So a woman equals an adult female human. Just like we have decided a long time ago, and every language on the planet does this. In English, we decided a long time ago that mare, M-A-R-E, is the noun we use to name the adult phase in the female equine, equine being horse, female horse. So mare is the adult phase in the female horse life cycle. So, and we've decided that stallion is the name that we use to name, is the noun that we use to name the adult phase in the male equine life cycle. Now, all of us know that a stallion is different to a mare. They belong to the same species, but they are different in terms of their sex, in terms of their biology. We also know that we can't turn a stallion into a mare. If we castrate a stallion, we don't get a mare, we get a gelding. If we castrate a human male, a man, an adult human male, we don't turn him into a woman, an adult human female, we turn him into a eunuch. So the postmodernists have been attempting to get around biological reality, material reality and biological facts by claiming that things are only what we agree they are, that they actually don't have any status or any validity or any verifiability outside of our own perceptions and our own we construct reality, or that we can construct reality, we can queer it. Susan Cox does a much better explanation of all of this. She's on a interview with Derek Jensen of Deep Green Resistance. Sorry, I've got chemo brain going on, so I'm not going to be as articulate today as other days. I had chemo yesterday, so anyway. So you can find out more about this whole queering of language by the postmodernists and the queer theorists by listening to Susan Cox on this interview with Derek Jensen that you can find on YouTube. The point I'm trying to make here is that we have postmodernist queer theorists and as Jennifer Bilek has pointed out, a large number of white male billionaires with a fetish who control technology and corporations getting on board with trying to define woman out of existence. And they do this by claiming that woman is not a biological state, it's a state of mind or a state of feeling, and that human males can feel like a woman. Now, I don't know any woman who actually feels like a woman. It's like when people say that to me, it's like they're saying that all women share some psychological traits or some brain features in how the brain operates. Sorry, chemo brain, you're going to have to bear with me for this one. So I ask people, give me 5 personality traits that are shared by all adult human females on the planet. And what they're actually referring to is femininity, which the femininity part is what the social construct is. The male man boy is sex, masculine is gender, female woman girl is sex, feminine is gender. And the feminine and the masculine part are the social constructs. And you will find, as brain researchers Gina Rippon and Daphne Joel and others have found, that there are no masculine or feminine traits, personality traits, that brain traits, that the human brain is a mosaic of traits, and those traits show up across the spectrum from male to female. There's a massive overlap between the two sexes, and they remind us that the human brain is plastic, it's malleable, it changes profoundly and rapidly in response to trauma or to sustained stimulus. So I can teach myself to do more masculine things if I didn't already have masculine traits in my personality or in how my mind works, my brain works, by doing different exercises, by exposing myself to situations where more masculine, which is a pretend word and it's a pretend concept, where more masculine responses are required. So all of that is totally mutable. It's also very subjective, and it changes in different cultures. Some things in one culture are considered to be masculine, and in another culture they might be considered to be feminine, and vice versa. So what happens when the queer theorists and the corporations define woman no longer as adult female human, but anyone who feels like a woman? What does it mean to feel like a woman? As I said, I've never yet met any person that can give me 5 traits or emotions or preferences in performance or presentation that are intrinsically linked to female biology, or that are not ever found in men, in males and boys. And I can't find anybody who will give me 5 traits that are shared by all males to, masculine, 5 traits that are masculine, that have been labelled as masculine, that have been found in all males across all time and space and all the dimensions. That's a nod to my kids. So what happens when we suddenly decide that, to all intents and purposes, a chair is the same as a table? Maybe the chair feels like a table. It was intended for something that somebody will sit on, but it feels more, it identifies more as a table. We then make the word table meaningless, just like we make the word chair meaningless, when we make them interchangeable like that, when they're not alike at all, or they might share some similar properties, like the table might have 4 legs and the chair might have 4 legs. The table might be made of wood and the chair might be made of wood. But to say that the chair and the table are exactly the same is a ludicrous lie. And that's what we're being told now that we have to accept. A ludicrous lie that human males can be human females. That adult human males, men, can be adult human females, women, and vice versa. And that's just a lie, a bald, outright lie. And I'm not really good at kowtowing to demands that I accept lies like this and then implement them in my own life. It makes my own life a farce, a total farce. It erases me out of existence. It erases all women out of existence when we let this lie go ahead. It erases us for social and legislative policy purposes, and it takes away all of our sex-based rights. So when a male claims that he can be a woman, and we put laws in place to embed that legal fiction, and then we change our laws and say that actual female people have to share space with these male people because they are the same as us, that's just... I'm not stupid. I'm not being rude here to you guys watching this. I'm saying that to the system. I'm not stupid enough to go along with an ideology that erases my existence and takes away all my rights and gives those rights and extra ones that none of the rest of us have to males. So it's like the patriarchy is it's found the final way to get rid of pesky women, and sex discrimination and all sorts of other issues. We just pretend that women don't exist because the word woman and the state of being a woman is a social construct. That's rubbish. Women and the state of being a woman is a reality based in sex, in our sexed bodies. And our bodies are sexed in every single cell in our bodies, and there is no way that science has found yet to change our sex chromosomes to be able to change a human male into a human female and vice versa. So I can hear that my voice is getting very definite. I've got lots of energy running on this issue. I've been working on this issue for a long time, and I haven't really seen it getting better except in the last year when the women in the UK have started having some success in pushing back against this claptrap. So for me, the only way that I can see that we're going to stop this is to get women in power, to have our fair share of power, and to stop rubbish like the Equality Act, is to stop anything, to challenge anything which erases us as a sex class and erases our rights. And the only way we're going to do that is through collaboration with as many women as we can reach and who we can motivate and encourage to join this initiative for a global women's party. We are the 51%. We're as mad as hell. We're not taking it any longer. We're forming a global women's party with branches or chapters or whatever you want to call it in every country. And we say no, and we take some of our power and we get to turn this around. When I first started this whole initiative, my first priority was to get women into power. And that's still the priority, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to be able to do that until we also tackle at the same time the trans bullshit, because we're being told that women do have parity in power because we've got more trans women coming into power. They claim to be women, so what are we bitching about that women don't have more power, because these males are now claiming to be women and are taking seats that could have been ours in legislative councils and governments and what have you. So that's why I've pivoted a little bit where we have these two things running side by side, but the first thing that needs to be taken care of is this this gender ideology. It needs to be challenged, and the way to do that is to do it globally. Other groups are working on from a similar angle. For example, the women who got together and created the Declaration on Women's Sex-Based Rights. I suggest that if you don't know about this, that you do some research. I will put a link to it in the description when I upload this to YouTube later today. We've seen women work on that behind the scenes using social media as the initial get-together place, and then going off and working on it in private groups, coming together, publishing it, and now there are chapters of women working on this in different countries, working, approaching their own legislative chambers and members of parliament or representatives and senates and congresses, starting to work at the EU level, starting to work at the UN level to push back. We have the same thing with the LGBT Alliance, a bunch of people with, who share the sexual orientation of being lesbian, gay or bisexual, have decided that they no longer want to be associated with gender ideology, and they've left the LGBT part of things and they've gone back to the LGB part. And that was an initiative that first started in the UK, where one of the founders of Stonewall and a couple of other people of that person's age got together and created a breakaway group. And now this breakaway group is being set up in other countries as well. I see the same process. We can begin the same process here. We don't have to work in the traditional way that parties or organizations have been set up in the past. We have the technology and we have the reach to create something very strong, very effective, impactful, very flexible and responsive to changing circumstances, and we can build the underlying legal foundation of that as we go along. We don't have to wait to do it all officially like this, like it has been done in the past. You know, in the past you would set something up, you would go and register it as a political organization, you would go through these various steps, and then when you had all of that in place, you would launch and build from there. We can build first, and we can do stuff in public. We can make an impact in public like these other groups have been doing, and then we can create the original or the organizational legislative platform underneath us as we go along. And the reason I'm pushing that angle is we don't have any more time to spare. We don't have any more time to dither around on doing it the old way. We don't have enough time to spend years in discussion on policy. We don't have enough time, you know, like to nut out the nitty-gritty of policy. We need to do that as we go along, but we can't spend the time it takes to get to those conclusions and then launch, because by then everything that we need to fight against to keep women present in society, in law, that will all have been a done deal, and we are going to have to work so hard to get it back, if we ever do get it back. I might sound alarmist to some of you, but I think you should. I think that it would pay you to look around and look at how much ground women have lost. I mean, we never had much ground before. We clawed some of it back over the generations of the work of feminists, and now it's all being pulled away, you know, away from us again, and we're in the danger zone for losing it all, and then having to start all over again. I mean, I don't have a lifetime left that's long enough to do that. And I don't want to, I'm going to be crude here, I don't want to piss or spit on the graves of the feminists that came before us, all the women, whether they just called themselves feminists or not, who did all the work, our foremothers who did all the work to try to pull back or to take some power, some equality, some equity for ourselves. I'm not going to piss on their graves by letting it all fall apart again and then having to rebuild right from the beginning. And at the rate that we're trashing our planet, we're not going to have the time to do that anyway. And at the rate that I don't believe that we can take the time to do it the old-fashioned way, because while this bullshit is being embedded in society, children, literally children, are being castrated, sterilized and mutilated in the name of gender ideology. These are kids. In the US, this is starting at age 8, with 8-year-olds on an NIH-funded project run by a woman called Joanna Olson Kennedy. 8-year-olds being given cross-sex hormones, and cross-sex hormones sterilize kids. We have 12-year-olds in the US, 12-year-old girls, getting elective double mastectomies and being told that later on, if they want breasts back, they can just get them. You know, they're talking about implants or breast reconstruction surgery. But as a woman who's had a mastectomy because I've got breast cancer and who's had reconstruction, it's such a crime what's being done to children, and I'm not willing to stand still and watch more children being fed these lies and then having their lives destroyed. And the ranks of the detransitioners are growing every single day, and they're all telling the same story, that they wish that somebody had had the nerve to challenge them when they were thinking the way they were about their bodies. Somebody had the nerve to talk with them about trauma and about social contagion. So, as women, the stereotype of us is as nurturers and carers and mothers, and I'm happy to take on board that stereotype in this work. I'm happy to take on, well, I'm pissed off that I have to do this, and that the men have walked away and left us to carry this can as well as all the others. But if it means that the work that I do here gets women power and stops this abuse of children, then I'll take that on, and I'll carry that stereotype that this is my role as a woman and as a mother, either a metaphysical mother, the archetype of the mother, or as a real mother. I am an adult female human. I have birthed children and I have grandchildren. So I have fulfilled or am living the role of mother in my own life. So I've been talking for, I can't see how long. Anyway, 25 minutes, there we are. 25 minutes. So this whole initiative is about, in the IT world and in the project management world, they talk about agile, being agile. We're going to be agile. We are going to, and this is taking the words right out of the gender ideology thing, we are going to identify ourselves into a global women's political party, a global women's organization that challenges these things head on, stops the erasure of women as a sex class, stops the erasure of women's rights, moves forward to take our fair share of the power, the governance power in our species, in our society, and works to stop the abuse of children, however that might manifest itself, and the abuse of the planet. And not necessarily in that order, but all of those things are included in the vision for where we're going to go with this. And the reason I haven't put the words feminist in anywhere is because we're not going to achieve any of this if we're only working with women who self-identify as feminists. And whoops, we have a cat just walked across my keyboard. The cat is after some robins, which must have decided that it's spring already because they're looking for worms in our garden. It's a bit early for that, but that's climate disruption for you. The reason I haven't put this out as a specifically feminist initiative is because we have, 4 billion women and girls on the planet, assuming we are half of the species. We're not exactly half of the species anymore, by the way, thanks to sex-selective abortions, which have got, by some estimates, there are 200 million women and girls missing out of the human population statistics thanks to sex-selective abortions. But the reason is we have half the species is female, not half of the species is feminist or identifies itself as feminist. And if we are going to actually make this work, we can't afford to be selective in only working with other people who are other women who are feminists. And then amongst the women who call themselves feminists, we have divisions and infighting going on, and we don't have time to sort all of that out to come to some place where we can all work together. So it seems to me to be very pragmatic and logical not to get ourselves hung up and ensnared in all of the old divisions that have kept us apart. The thing that we do have in common, we are all female, we are all living and surviving in society in a female body, and all of the oppression that we have to fight comes from having a female body. So we get together and we work on issues where we have enough commonality, and we leave the issues that we don't have enough commonality, we leave them to deal with them behind closed doors at some point in the future. We don't let them get in the way of the mission of this initiative. So I don't know how many women can work that way. I can. I've seen it work really successfully in groups like Hands Across the Aisle. I've seen, the LGB Alliance has people in it who are conservatives and people who are so-called liberals or progressives. I don't like any of those labels anymore. I've moved way past them. I find them limiting and divisive. They don't look for where the commonality is, they look for where the differences are, and until we can find enough commonality, we're not going to have any success. I saw yesterday an announcement on Twitter from a conservative woman, a conservative group that says that they've signed on to the Women's Declaration on Sex-Based Rights. So there are conservative and progressive women working together on that initiative. I don't see why we can't do that on this initiative. So it's time for us to do this on a global level. We can do that on a global and a local level simultaneously. We start off as a global level, as a global organization, and then women who are joining that global organization, who live in specific countries, who have, who can get together and work together in their own countries, they can do that with the support of the global organization, and vice versa. It is information and support going across, leaving everything, instead of having a vertical organization or a vertical mindset, we have a collaborative horizontal structure and mindset. As I said, everything else in the past has been hierarchical, a bit like a phallus, right? Patriarchy, hierarchy, status, power, males proving to themselves and each other who is the most powerful. We don't have to play that game. We don't have to play the game by the old traditional rules. We can make it up as we go along. Next time I'll tell you the story. This is getting really long, so next time I'll tell you the story about the Seattle Shadow School Board again, for those who missed it the first time round. So I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to try and do a video, and I'm going to encourage other women that have already signed up or signed on to this initiative via the 51% group on Facebook and via the Global Women's Party group on Facebook. I have a private group with each of those set up. The Global Women's Facebook page, front-facing, public-facing page, has not been launched yet, but a private working group has been set up, and there's a private working group in the 51% as well. Message me via Facebook if you want more information about that. I'm going to set up a standalone email address for this initiative in the next day or two, and as soon as I do that, I'll make that available to people to establish contact and communication. Okay, I'm going to end now and upload this, and I will talk to you all soon. I plan to do videos every couple of days, and I'm hoping that other women that are already committed to this initiative will make some videos as well. We will get some focus and some organization going where this all gets laid out in a clear, methodical manner, and that has a natural and organic progression to it that leads us to where we need to go. Okay, thank you for listening. Namaste.